We are back with the Bergers again. I always love catching up with you guys.
Likewise.
We're deep in the Masters CrossFit Games season.
Yeah.
Lynette, you've done some other things, so I want to catch up with some of the things you've done. I want to talk about the Masters Games and kind of how the season is going so far.
Yeah.
So
That's great, Scott.
So let's start with, you're in kind of this big lull. How hard is it to stay motivated for 3 months while you're waiting for the games to come up?
Yeah, so what is it, like 12 weeks from qualification to the games, which is 4 or 5 weeks longer than normal. We kind of took the approach that in the beginning we're going to take a couple weeks to kind of breathe, and we still work out, just kind of take the intensity down just to start to warm up to the season. And then once we get out to that 10 or 8 weeks range, we'll start to ramp it up. And so that kind of gave me a little more mental break of like, hey, we'll do fitness once a day. It's much easier on the schedule, and just kind of start touching special stuff, minimizing the time. And that gave me a pretty good refresh. But overall, how do I keep sane? How do I keep going? Lynette helps the logistics behind this of getting training partners, going to different gyms, going, traveling and working out with the pan chicks, like changing things up, making it different, knowing, hey, this is games training and we're going to do things different, and just going into that with that mentality.
Yeah, and you should also mention your fitness outside of the gym lately.
Oh yeah?
The
What's
barn.
that?
It's been keeping
And
you
we have a
busy.
distraction.
That was my next question.
Okay, there you go.
So, on the same wavelength.
There you go.
Yeah, we
Climbing ladders,
yeah,
carrying
we
odd
partnered.
objects.
We partnered with a friend and bought a property that had an older barn, and we're refurbishing the barn into a gym, just like a personal workout space. And so Lynette has to really pull me from it, because I would work on it all day, every day. But we started with the rule that training first, get the training done, then whatever energy I have left over after training, family, work, I can go work on the barn. So it's slow progress.
So we're at the end of June right now. So there's still 8 weeks before the games.
Yeah.
You're not even to that 6-week mark yet.
Right.
So it's kind of the ideal time to do other stuff. Right?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. It is.
Why the barn?
So
I know that's a loaded question.
Like
So-
it goes back to his childhood.
Yeah.
His parents had a property with a big barn,
I had a big barn.
and I
pole
think
barn.
it has like nostalgia to it.
Yeah, and we live in a kind of a tight neighborhood, and I've always wanted to have some property and literally a barn. And it used to be that would be a shop where I would repair cars and build wood and build things out of wood. Now it's okay. Well, that's going to be my home gym, because we're outgrowing our space here, our home gym in the garage, or our corner in the basement. And it just made sense. Hey, let's get a property that's, just a little bit of drive outside the country, and then we can go out and train, and it just creates this space that we can focus on it. Yeah.
Because we, like, during the cold months, we move everything to the basement, and then we move everything. It's a lot of work. Like, it's not really a choice because of his work. It's not realistic that we can make it to the gym we love, Chalk Dust. That's still going to be our community, our actual gym where we would do qualifiers, and that nothing replaces that community.
Yep.
But,
Stop asking my questions before I get to ask them.
sorry, we just know each other too well. But like the reality of it is, if we have a window in the morning before his meetings, or a lunchtime break that we can get something done here, it's just something convenient. And so kind of having that one space that he can work from and work out, it will make it very, very convenient.
So is there a house on the property?
There is.
Yep.
Are you doing anything with the house?
So yes, the goal is to have it rented. It's funny because we tell this story that we bought a barn that came with a house. But we actually have to do something with the house. So like he said, we partnered with our good friend. He's also a realtor, so he has a lot of experience. And that's why we actually went into this. I think by ourselves, with everything we have going on, we couldn't have pulled it off. But so we are rehabbing the house currently, and hopefully we can have it rented. And hopefully we can have some really cool people that move in there and get the whole working out thing in a barn that is behind the property.
Yeah, don't bother the
Yeah.
renters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that would come with a little bit of possible conflict if you don't have the right tenant, right?
Yeah, but it's like the way it's laid out is actually on its own like parcel. Like so it's in a 2-acre lot and it backs up to the woods. So yes, it's kind of weird, but at the same time it's out of the way. The garage doors will be on the back of the barn, so
Yeah.
it like we won't have it shouldn't be on their face, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
and we'll be good people.
Yeah.
So, speaking of chalk dust, I know that's your community, that's your gym, that you love that.
Mm-hmm.
And you say you're not doing this to like get away from that. This is just your home
Yeah.
gym, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel guilty about some of the time you spend at chalk dust, like that's not class time or not?
Yeah, so for sure. So we are very good friends with Mike and Caitlin, and from the beginning they have been super accommodating. They've always opened the gym to basically anything we needed.
Yeah.
But sometimes, you know, for example, if we are working out at noon and we need the rings, that is a particular member's square that he always goes to. So we're like, oh, can we? And everybody's like, oh my gosh, please go ahead. Like,
Yeah.
there's never
Everyone's so
a hesitation,
accommodating.
and we work around it really like as much as we can. But there's always this like, don't want to interrupt classes, don't want to take importance away from what the members need, and that I don't think it has been an issue at all. I think I mean, the community saw us grow from day one there,
Yeah.
so I think there's a very great like working relationship. But sometimes it's like if the gym is packed and Rudy's like moving equipment around, it just feel like we're invading people's space. So
Yeah.
Again, it's not something that they ever made us feel that way, but it's just something that we're like, oh, like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it's natural. It's not your space, even though as a CrossFitter you always feel like your gym is part yours, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like
Right.
our second home. Like our kids grew up there. Like it's
Literally.
yeah. So it is really fun. Like we I think he trains there probably 3 times a week.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to see. Like sometimes we drop in during the noon class.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the evening, so we get to see kind of everybody. And the goal is to make this barn like an extension of the community. So right now there's really only work to be done there, not any workouts. But once we have it in good enough shape that we could, like, we
Yeah.
want to host everybody. Like anybody that wants to come change it up and work out with us on the weekends or whatever is more than welcome to.
Yeah.
So I was watching an interview with Saxon Panchek and Dave Castro today. And I just talked to Saxon a couple weeks ago. So he's really into, after that year of injury, like getting more connected with the community. He learned that like not being connected with the community actually was hurtful to him.
Sure.
Especially when you get hurt and there's like
Nobody.
nobody around, right? So he asked Dave Castro if in order to win the prize money at the games, should it be a requirement that the person have their L1? And
Interesting.
Dave Castro said, I think it should be. We need to get that connection back with the elite athletes and their community, which is why it's so cool watching you guys at Chalk Dust and that community you have. Is it a stress release when you kind of get to go just drop in on a class?
Oh my gosh, yeah. This week I've made it to the 6:15 a.m. class 3 days, and on my notes,
Good work.
more than the score or the actual workout I get, it's just so refreshing to start the day with friendly faces that just, I don't know, it just sets your day up to be a better day.
Yeah.
So for sure, I personally, I program for Rudy, I program for other people, and I don't want to program for myself. I program for the kids. I just want to show up and do what's written. So for me, so when I'm programming here, I tend to like overthink things for myself, and then I just end up doing something that, I don't know, it's probably very biased for myself. So taking that away from my plate and just going to class is personally my favorite.
Yeah.
So he knows that. 6:15 is like most recently the class I can make because the day gets kind of busy. and I get back before his first training session. So I love it. It's the best way to start my day.
Yeah.
Well, Rudy and I were talking before we hit record on this camera about that sometimes you forget what this is all about, right? It's about being healthy,
Yes.
being mobile into your latter years,
Yep.
being able to run around with your kids and grandkids.
Yep.
By being connected with the community, it's harder to lose sight of that.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And like, I guess our story is not necessarily the traditional individual elite story, right? It's more like, you know, we had this goal and our community saw us like come up with this goal and support us all the way through winning the first game. So like, it really felt like everybody's investment was in from day one.
Yeah.
Like at first, I'm sure that
Incredibly.
some members were like, what are they doing? Like, why is he working out so much? And then they started to get it. And so it's just been this journey that we, like, I can't even picture not having a community. Like, that's
Yeah.
not even something that it
Yeah.
would
Like-
make
like-
sense for us.
Like I feel it's I'm part of that community. It's my community, and I know the community feels like, you know, I am one of them, and that's why I think they have such a strong connection, because they're like, oh, that's one of us. We're going to Madison to watch Rudy. It's one of us. So it's strong.
Yeah, Saxon told me that one of the best things he ever did was go back to coaching.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah,
And it gave him that connection with the community that he missed.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
And you guys know the story. Like, he had an affiliate that he owned and coached and
Yeah.
programmed for and all that. And that got kind of taken away from him. So it's cool that he's found his way back.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one last question about the barn. I watch you guys on Instagram like a hawk. And I see
boy.
like these structures
Oh,
that look like they're
Don't get me started.
outside the barn.
Yes.
And
Yes. Okay.
is that like rings, rope climb,
no.
fire
eventually.
tower,
So.
skyscraper? What's going on there?
Feels like
So,
a scary.
so the just like any other good home renovation project, we've had some scope creep, and the size of the barn extended a
Like
little
we
bit,
is-
extended some more, and then at a certain point we're like, well, I want to be able to do 50 feet of things because that's such a CrossFit standard. It's got to be longer than 50 feet, so it kept growing. And then the inside, I designed an area that had basically a 17-foot truss with very open space so that we can have rope climbs in the rings and all that. So yes, it is by design.
So I work with systems all day. I hear the term scope creep probably 30 times a day.
Correct.
And usually that comes with a no, you can't do that.
That was me until I said, fine, fine, I give up. Like, sure, have this barn that now is like double the size. But if you look at it from the side, it's just like half a barn and then dirt and poles sticking up at this point.
Right now,
So,
yes.
and I am like his construction partner apparently,
Yeah.
and he puts a lot more trust in my abilities than
Oh,
he should.
she's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of trust in ladders I saw.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
He said, let's go do a little framing. That's not the framing I had in mind.
I think the real episode we should have done is out live at the site of the barn.
We
Okay.
should next time.
Next time.
And,
Yes.
I thought about it, but I was like, I don't even know if there's like internet connection out there.
Oh
Like,
no.
Or if
we don't
even
have
need it.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
We will have Wi-Fi. Not yet.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into a little bit of the Masters CrossFit news. This is the first year you're split off
Yep.
from the games. I've talked to Jason Grubb, I've talked to people who have been to the games several times, talked to you. They're not as affected about this split off as people who have never made it.
Right.
And there seems to be a clear delineation about that because they feel cheated, that they don't get the experience that you all got being at the big show
Sure.
with the big kit.
Yep.
I think the big kit is the straw that broke the camel's back.
You're talking the gear kit.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's been announced that, well, it's been assumed that based on the survey, you all will get 3 tops, 3
Yes.
bottoms,
Yep.
and some other stuff.
One wristband, which for him, I don't know.
the sweatbands, yes.
Yes.
and that it is required that you wear this uniform for all events.
Correct.
I've known you a long time now, Rudy. You sweat
Like nobody else.
like nobody's business.
Yes. It's going to be a challenge.
Who is going to run your stuff to laundry in between events so that people can bear to watch you finish the event?
Well, that might be part of strategy. Because if I get ripe enough, it'll affect my competitors.
He will.
Right? Yeah, I mean, we'll just have to do laundry quick. We'll have to pick up some extra stuff just to be prepared.
Yeah.
And I'm, at the same time, I'm still grateful for this opportunity. Yes, those that are just joining us this year from a master's perspective, it is different. It's a new thing, but I think it's an opportunity where this will be the better thing. I really do.
And I would say I can absolutely understand people that are comparing, what they got for the last however many years to versus what they're getting now. And I don't want to sound like I'm complaining, but I think like with the expansion of the athletes, I mean, it's gonna have to be different because the budget has to be different. And and I know there's a big controversy around all of that. And all I'm just gonna say, like, if they have to make some cuts on the things that they're giving the athletes, then I feel like they should make some concessions too as to what they're allowed to wear. So for example, if they're not giving out hats or headbands or more than one pair of wristbands, then allow the athletes to wear their own. So there has to be some kind of a compromise because
Here's my proposal. Every day there's one highlighted event that you must wear your uniform for.
That's a great
On
idea.
the other events, wear what you need to get through the weekend.
Yeah.
So
That's
that
a good call.
This is our highlighted event.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be in uniform. It's going to look cool.
Yeah.
And then on the other ones, hey, you can wear your sponsor stuff, so you might be able to make some money to get yourself here
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
and help pay for these trips.
Yeah, I
honestly.
think there just has to be some compromise. It should not be so rigid where you're not giving them what they have gotten in the past, yet you expect them to have fresh clothing for every day. Like that's a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's a first world problem, right? Like it's not the end of the world.
I think what happens in the CrossFit space is we get into these arguments, and it's either all the way over here or all the way over here.
Yeah.
Why can't we meet in the middle and say, you know what, we're streaming this. This is going to be the prime time thing. Wear your uniform for that.
Exactly. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I mean, we're here to find the fittest people. Like, what you're wearing doesn't really matter that much. And at the end of the day, if you're stinky, you're stinky. It's just what it is.
Yeah. And you could have like a dress code policy that you must wear at least a pair of shorts and, just to make sure nobody goes completely
Extreme.
off the rails.
Yes.
This is true.
Most of the field takes their shirt off anyway. So it's like, why does it really matter that much?
Right, you're right. Yeah.
Right. So it's in Birmingham, Alabama. Do we know, have they told you guys what the facility is?
I
mean, they
forgot
told
what it's
us
called.
where it's at. I forget the name, but they said it's at this place. I'm trying to remember the name.
Some guy's name.
Yeah, some guy's name.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, that's where it's at, and that's where it's going to be completely contained, unless there's some crazy thing with like a swim or a trail run that we aren't aware of. But I would expect it to be all at that one facility, the convention center.
I talked to Joe, I've talked to him a couple times in the last couple weeks, and he's super excited. Like, the venue they got, he said, is really nice. So I'm excited. I take him at his word.
Yeah.
Legends this year was at a beautiful facility.
Yeah, I heard.
So I take him at his word for that because they followed through on that. My hope is that I get to do behind the scenes at the Masters
That would be
Games.
really fun.
Cool.
That's why I've been talking to him so much.
Okay.
I find out tomorrow
Okay.
if
That's cool.
if we have full blown coverage.
Media access.
Cool.
Good.
Yeah. So I hope we can do that. So when you're going to ramp up mid-July.
Yeah.
We're kind of starting to just throw a little bit extra spice here and there, but nothing really too crazy yet.
Yep.
Do you do any kind of odd object training more now than you do during the rest of the year?
I would say yes, because, earlier on in the season, we focus on what is likely to come up. So sandbags are typically not a thing, or, carries outside. So, yeah, I would say that the training changes the closer we get to the games, for sure.
So I want to move away from that piece, and I want to talk about kind of what's been going on around you guys this year. Your daughter got to compete in the Open for the first time ever.
That was really cool.
Your kids they're so involved in so many things. I get to watch track meets and cross country and all this stuff on Instagram, and it's so cool seeing how you guys have set the example for them and how that's working. Leah did awesome in the Open.
Thank you.
But you guys made the choice to kind of take a step back this year and let her do her school thing.
Yes.
When we look around the CrossFit space, a lot of young girls are backing out of the sport.
Yes.
Does that weigh heavy on your mind when you see your kids moving into this CrossFit thing?
Yeah, I think that it would be silly not to learn from what other very successful teenagers in the sport have gone through, and for sure take some red flags that say, hey, for us it's like CrossFit is going to be there. You only get to do middle school track once or cross country once. And while CrossFit has been part of their lives since they were 3 and 4,
Literally.
I mean, we have old videos of them doing toes to bar in the basement when they were toddlers. It's not that we don't want to take it seriously. It's just that we see it as a complement to the sport that they're working on.
Absolutely.
And when they decide to, take it on a little bit more competitively, we'll be there to help them. But I think they see the hard work that goes in and the dedication, that it's almost like, if they don't feel like training with dad, I don't make them train. But they know that if they want to do really well, they're going to have to make choices that are different than what they're making today. And so, for example, with Leah doing really well in the Open and qualifying for quarters, it happened that it was the same week as like a big track meet she had. And if the workouts would have been different and she wanted to do them, I would have been open to let her try, but they were very leg heavy. And I was like, the last thing I want is her to be lined up on that start line on Saturday morning and like feel unprepared, or her confidence be shaky because of the workout she did that she didn't really have to do. So it was an easy choice, said, hey, focus on track and CrossFit will be there. And not because like, they have so many external pressures nowadays that adding to that and what they have to deal with is just not something we want to do.
The other thing that helped you avoid, and I know this wasn't the intention, is that if she would have made the games, those would have been on the same weekend.
Oh my gosh, that is so stressful.
And
like
we did talk about that.
And Mason asked me, he's like, who would you have chosen? And I'm like, duh, Leah. Like, I have to be there for her first. And then he's like, who would be with dad? I'm like, you. And he's like, me. So
Coach Mason.
There you go.
Mason, jump on the phone. Call mom.
So no, it would have been extra challenging for us this season. So, but
So I was actually talking to Tony Tursky, who qualified, I think, 55 to 60.
Okay.
And he coaches a mother and daughter who both made it.
Oh wow.
And we're actually going to try to get both of them on as to what this complication does to them. Another proposal I'd like to make is, it's all age group. Why not have them in the same place at the same time?
I
agree.
And get all the eyes in one location.
Yes. That's a
agree
really
with that.
great suggestion. Yeah, for sure.
And pool the budgets.
Yeah.
Then you only have to pay for one facility, not two.
Yep. Equipment is all the same.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's a great idea.
It is.
Yeah, and like you said, it's like separating like the potential for viewers to keep track of two things. It's much lower than if you just said, hey, stay tuned for, you're gonna see teenagers through 60 plus compete. I think that's much more attractive than to.
While I'm on my proposal riff, I'm going to go with you guys should have competed before the elites. The way it's set up in Dallas, now that some information's been released, the vendor village is going to have the beer garden and the big screen TV.
Okay.
Well, with only elites going and team, there's going to be a lot of breaks during the day.
Yeah.
Why not have you guys compete ahead of time and re-air the events in that beer garden in between all those events?
That would have been great. Yeah.
And then you guys are all highlighted still on the big stage,
Right.
at least in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. Definitely.
I mean, I feel like there is a risk with people being like CrossFit out by the time the masters compete, you know, like people, I don't know.
Another reason to go first.
Yeah.
So, how long do the Olympics last? Have we talked about the fact that the Olympics start, July 26th? And when do the CrossFit Games start?
Oh, smack dab in the middle.
Yeah.
So, like, we're okay. We're after all that, you know, until Labor Day. So
Yeah. I will say, I think I saw that the Adaptive Olympics, I don't think that's the right
The
name.
Paralympics?
Yes, are the same weekend as the Masters.
Really?
I believe. I'm almost positive that that is the case, which I see it as like a great opportunity for inspiration. You know, we watch the Golden Girls every night before bed when he's competing. That's what he chooses to watch.
I
So,
think this is the nugget from the interview.
there you go.
Rudy watches the Golden Girls to relax.
Yeah. Hey, next time
Totally
you can wear
takes
his
your mind
Golden
off.
Girl shirt.
Yeah, I even have a shirt. Yeah.
So this
Who's your favorite Golden Girl? I can't.
The old lady. What's her name?
the mom,
The mom.
they're all old.
I forget her name.
I have
don't
no
know.
idea. I
Yeah.
only knew of the Golden Girls when he told me. Like, he's like, let's find the Golden Girls on TV, and I'm like, the who? Yeah. So it's a thing now.
My go-to is Friends. I've seen it so many times that I can like fall asleep to it and not
Sure.
feel like I'm missing anything.
Mine
Right.
is The Office. I love
That's-
it.
that's
It
my
never
wife's.
gets old.
Now it's going to kill me till that comes to my head. Who that
Yeah.
is? Sophia.
Sophia. Yes.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay.
That's the old lady. Yeah.
Okay.
And in real life, she was actually younger than all of the other
Yeah.
ones.
That's
that was
so
that was
funny.
the cool thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she was in the. Now we're just way off the tracks, but in the Stallone movie "Stopper My Mom Will Shoot,"
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
she played the mom to
Yeah.
Sylvester
Oh
Stallone.
yeah. That's cool.
I want to talk about Lynette and some of the additional things you've taken on. It kind of started last year with Emma Tall, Emma Tall at the games,
Yeah.
and we talked about that post games last year. But now I find out, not from my friend Lynette, but from Max himself, that he had hired you as his coach.
Yes. That is.
And then I called you, I texted you right after that going, how come I have to hear this news from someone other than you?
It's so funny timing because I think it happened like 2 days before that interview.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I know excuses. I'm sorry, Scott. But yeah, Max, super exciting.
So it's funny because we've been following Max's career for a couple of years because Jamie picked him as a dark horse 2 years ago at the Orlando semifinal.
It's a good pick.
And he almost made it. And he's so close, so close. So he said that he needed somebody to kind of take over some of the thought process and let him just train. And I thought, well, you couldn't have picked anybody better.
Thank you.
So what exactly do you do for Max?
So I would say right now we're kind of in the learning process. So when he first called me up, I was super honored, and honestly I didn't expect it because I'm in the master space, so he's an individual. But I interacted with Max at Southland camp. So kind of everything goes back to Southland, which is great. And I think that he was a really great guy, great athlete, and we kind of stayed in touch a little bit. And when he called me up, I was like, totally, I can't, it's really hard for me not to want to jump in and help people that are amazing humans. So I was totally in from the beginning. I was like, then we'll just figure out how to make it work. But yes. And so it was, I think, like maybe 3 weeks before semifinals. So at that point, we weren't really changing anything, right? The fitness was done. The fitness
Hayes
was
in the bar.
Yeah,
There's not much you can do at that point.
And what I just started working with him on was like, hey, the workouts are released. You're gonna test them. Send me videos, and then we'll break them down and talk about it. So that was, something that I'm comfortable with because it's the same process for Rudy. So we just kind of hit it off that way and shared strategies. It's a very collaborative process. I mean, I respect the way he thinks and how he approaches things, and I'm more than anything just trying to bring a different perspective to challenge his thinking a little bit and just, maybe pick up on certain biases or things that he might not be noticing. So that was kind of the initial work together. Then he's like, hey, do you think you can come to semis? And I'm like, yes, we'll make it work. So it was Leah's last day of middle school, so it was a little tricky leaving town a little late, but made it there before his first event. And seriously, like, I am so proud of how he performed at semifinals. Like, he did so great. And what I brought to the table, like I said, fitness was already done. He knows what he's doing. It was more about trying to take things off of his plate so he could focus on just performing and executing his best. So, I did all his timing for, okay, this is when you need to eat. This is when you need to start warming up. This is when you need to go to the bathroom before they call you. Basically forcing him to eat more than he wanted to, and scheduling his recovery appointments, and just more like the logistics of it, and also that kind of support in the warm-up area of like, hey, you're looking down when you're about to snatch, or some things that, from a coaching perspective are details that the athlete has so many things going on that it just helps to have that person there to, be there to support you.
Yeah.
I can't help but notice that Rudy is nodding his head as you're going through the list of things you do.
Yeah.
Because I'm assuming he's been through this
Yeah.
a number of times.
Yep.
Yeah.
Rudy, it's just been you and Lynette for a long time.
Yes.
And now she has other athletes.
Yep.
How does that make you feel?
I love it because it's giving her the opportunity to grow. Like, she started as an understudy under Scott Panchik, one of the greatest coach programmers of all time. And so now it's like, all right, you've been taught all these things, spread your wings and help others. And like she said, she's only going to do this for people that are fantastic and that she knows well, at least right now. Anyways, we'll see how wide those wings can spread. But I love it. She actually had me test a couple paces for the semifinals for Max, so that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love it. I want to see her grow.
So athletes make the worst spectators. So she's not on the floor, but like her success depends on Max. When you're watching that, how nervous did you get?
Very nervous. It was. I felt like I was on Max's team, and and I actually was texting Lynette all the times from like the previous heats and like trying to make myself useful. It's like, hey, I need to try to help something, from just a support perspective. So it was yeah, I was very involved.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
you've been blessed to have an athlete that has won the games every time he's tried, right?
Yes.
Now you have an athlete that's trying to get over this hurdle. So it's a complete different perspective.
Yeah.
And the stress of that has to be crazy when you're there.
I would say yes, and maybe it's because our relationship is so recent, that when we broke down the workouts, he outperformed the things that he was going to crush, and then he executed about the performance that we expected on the events that were not his strengths. So regardless of the outcome, like the execution was really well done. And so, while the ultimate goal is to make it to the CrossFit Games, I think right now the goal was to say, okay, let's kind of identify what are those areas that we need to focus on and then just hammer them and not from the traditional approach of doing necessarily more. It's like, let's solve it to root cause. So he's actually visiting early July,
Yeah.
so in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
He's gonna stay with us. Our kids love him because he is a Taylor Swift fan, so just by that. And at Southland, they spend so much time doing the ramp, the handstand walk ramp.
Yeah, every time we looked in this corner, they have the
There's Max and
handstand ramp,
Mason.
and there's Max and Mason like battling.
So they're
on the
looking
handstand
forward
ramp.
to
So
hanging out with Max.
they already know him well. It's wild.
So we are going to, like, as you know, I am very resourceful, and so when I don't know something, I am not really embarrassed or ashamed to say I don't know the answer to that. So my goal for his visit here is to link him up with people that we trust that help us identify, all right, this is what he needs to focus on.
Yep.
And then we're going to execute on those things.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a fun visit.
So this is going to be an interesting question because
Okay.
I've been around you for a couple years, documenting the journey. For Rudy, you only need a look,
Yes.
right? Now you have new clients that I'm not sure that's the technique that's going to work. So how much better of a coach are you becoming because it's forcing you to use other cues, other ways of communication?
Yes, that is a very great point. And maybe I just got lucky, but Max's and Rudy's personality are very similar in a way on the competition floor in how they approach things. They're both very calm. They don't really get flustered. They manage stress really well. So from that perspective, our communication was fairly kind of smooth from the get-go. I did get a little excited the first day because I'm used to the Masters timeline for warming up. And, Rudy needs a solid hour before he's even, like, touching anything. And Max is, like, rolling in with, like, 40 minutes to go, and I'm like, you're making me really nervous. And then I'm like, okay, he's half Rudy's age.
Younger muscles,
Younger muscles,
Not
yes.
half your age, but...
younger ligaments.
But
Yeah.
so anyways, there was a little bit of a learning curve for that. And then what I loved about being there is that I got to see him, through the highs and the lows, and got to learn about how he handles all of that, which is not easy, especially by yourself. Like, I don't know how anybody does this without a coach by them, whether that coach is your spouse or some close friend that you trust, but there has to be somebody there for you to kind of celebrate with you and also kind of pick you up when things don't go your way. So the fact that he's done this by himself, it's kind of impressive on its own. But it was great. After every event, we took a walk, kind of like a cool down walk, and we debriefed and celebrated things that went well and kind of took notes of things that we need to work on, and then we moved on. So it was kind of, like I said, I got lucky because he's not a really emotional person. Kind of gives you the same look, whether things are good or not so good. So yeah, it's like him. Except, I can kind of boss him around a little more. Max, I have to, be a little more professional.
So the only time I saw Max get emotional when I talked to him was when we talked about Taylor Swift.
Yes, he like brighten up.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Leah, actually, I had these like little ideas to kind of occupy our time when we were in between events or killing time. So Leah made Taylor Swift trivia for him and his wife, and they have some work to do. Leah,
Okay.
I told Leah, I'm like, make it hard because they're like top 5 fans.
Not only did she do Taylor Swift trivia, she did CrossFit trivia for like the whole group that you were with.
Yeah.
Let's call it the Southland crew. Like
Yeah.
Brandon and his wife are all there, and so she had a pretty good CrossFit trivia that she sent there.
Yeah.
It was cool.
It's always a family affair.
So speaking of family, the Southland group has become a family of yours.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I had Brandon on last night, and he talked about how you've become an integral part and are part of the planning, and he relies on you so much. So here you are at this iconic place in California where the games used to be held. And you have Scott Tetlow, Brandon Luckett, Max Krieg, Bill Leahy, all there, hanging out. When you're there competing, is it still a family, or do they kind of go to their separate corners for the weekend?
No, it truly felt like a family. Like I got so many hugs. I loved hanging out with Scott. He's such a great guy. Like I missed the briefing because I was flying in late, and they changed the run for the event one kind of last minute, and Scott is the one who took me to the new course to see it. So yes, they're competitors on the field, but there is, like, everybody wants to do their best, and like Brandon said yesterday, they just push each other. You know, they set the standard, and they have their strengths and their weaknesses, and they just use that to really make each other a better athlete.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really great to be with the crew. Roy was Brandon's coach. So Roy and I, oh my gosh, we were like, it's like, this is stressful because it's a big deal. Like the countdown of before they announced who made it. Like I think Roy and I were like this. We're like sweating. We're like, you know, he was texting us.
All I have to say is, so I was keeping score from remotely in Ohio, and I had a spreadsheet with all the scores.
Of course you did.
So I technically knew before they announced.
Yes.
I was like, all right, Brandon's good. Brandon's good.
But it's not until you hear it.
That's what you
that
get.
you're like,
anyways.
yeah. So no, it was really great. It was a great experience.
That's cool.
Well, the part about that weight, and every athlete I've talked to, that weight is just miserable. But there could be a penalty. There could be an appeal. There could be, and so what you think happened on the floor may not have happened, and you're waiting.
And I swear your brain just like you look at the leaderboard, and then you have so many thoughts going through your mind that you I don't want to rely on my math, and I will not be the one to tell Brandon he made it and then something is not right or the opposite, you know. So it's just like everybody kind of knows, but nobody is certain until that is announced.
It's wild.
So yeah.
It's, and I think like the Masters don't get that feel because you do it at home and you wait for the leaderboard to be released, right?
That's it. And then you wait 2 more weeks through video review, which who knows what's going to happen there.
I have told my listeners repeatedly, the best time to go watch CrossFit Live is at the semifinals.
Yeah, that's good.
Way more tension, way more stress,
Wow.
and everybody's accessible. Everybody's hanging out. At the games, they have everybody on lockdown.
Yeah, they do.
You know, where they're like everybody's just hanging out, having a good time. Until Sunday. And then it becomes really tense. And you're watching it all, especially this year with that last event, fall apart on that last event.
Oh my gosh.
Especially this year too, with being kind of like day 3 had just as many points up for grabs than the previous 2 days.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was like there was nothing set in stone until maybe for some people at the top, but like there's a lot of movement that could happen on day 3. So yeah, it was fun.
So my last question is about this is, do you have other athletes or do I have to go interview a bunch of people until I find out?
No, that is the only elite athlete. I have other athletes that are not as competitive, but are more like local competitive working athletes. So yeah, no.
Okay. So do you have plans for Max in the off season to do maybe some of the bigger events?
Yeah, so we actually just met on Monday to talk about some of those dates. He is kind of looking at the calendar and prioritizing some events he may want to do. One that we're looking at is the Desert City Classic. I'm biased towards that because I know that with Scott behind the programming, it's going to be amazing. Like, it's going to be a really good test of fitness. And if there was like an open or a master's division, Rudy would be doing it too. Yeah, I am encouraging Max to do that one.
And it's at the same location as Legends was last year.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. I
Cool.
knew it was in the same city, but I didn't know the venue was the same.
Yeah, actually Desert City tested it first.
Okay.
Then Legends went there second.
Oh.
Okay.
And I think they both signed a 2-year contract.
Oh,
Now I
okay.
remember
Very
that.
cool.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it would be really cool to see if he wants to do Rogue. So yeah, some maybe big things
Little
coming.
Scotland trip. in the
Hey, I
future.
told him like I gotta go to that. You need your coach there.
Of course he does.
Yeah.
Well, road pays for the athlete to go.
Yeah.
If you
That's
make
cool.
it.
Yeah.
So.
It'd be really cool. Yeah.
So now we're back to Rudy. You've won it 2 times in a row, but you're getting old in this division.
I know, and there's a lot of guys, young guys coming up from the 35 to 39, which is a really competitive age group. So
Does that give you pause, stress?
it gives me more fire, honestly. I can't settle for where I was at last year or the year before. I know I have to keep pushing, my fitness and keep progressing, which yeah, when the years start to tick on, it gets more challenging, but I'm not concerned.
We just add 15 minutes to the warm-up.
We just warm up a lot longer. No joke. A lot more warm up. And it just it makes it to where, we're very detail oriented, but we focus on more and more details, and there's just more things that you can uncover, from recovery and nutrition and just balancing the stress load of work and family and exercising.
So I know how data driven you guys are. It's hard when you keep winning to figure out where you need to be. And the target is moving now, right?
It is.
You're getting older, younger kids are coming up into your division.
Yeah.
Do you dip down into 35 to 39 to see kind of what's happening so that you have a target? Or do you just worry about yourself and getting better?
I think personally, what we do is, after a competition, well, in live or online, we debrief and we pick those things that weren't as successful. And maybe 2 years ago I was fine with how many double unders I could string, but this year I said, hey, I felt more fatigue on those than I feel I should have. I wasn't the most competitive. We need to dig into those. And so it's really it's almost like what Glassman and Castro say, where it's all right, if you get good at something, start back over on the fundamentals, and if you want to get better, it's you have to deconstruct it and start from the beginning again to then progress. So that's really what we're doing, and that also keeps it more fun and interesting too.
And I will say, on the data point, I think something that I've done, and it's because until the leaderboard is final, I can't relax, because it's just it's a waiting process. I do compare his scores to the 35 to 39 to kind of get an idea of would he have moved on if he was in that age group. So I can't say that I do that a lot or do it consistently, but every once in a while there might be an event that I'm I wonder how he would have ranked in this younger age group. So, but yeah, it's not something that we do all the time.
So my last question about data is, for the last couple of years, it's either my boss or Dave that have done the programming for your CrossFit Games.
Yes.
This year, it is Bob and Joe.
Correct.
Do you go back and look at the Legends workouts? I know our stats and info person, Holly, which you guys have become
Holly is amazing.
Yeah. So she actually posted all the Legends modalities, all the Legends time frames, all that. Do you look at that data more than what you've seen at the games?
So to be honest, I haven't dug into that yet, but I probably will a little bit more as we get closer. We probably need a long time to talk about this because I have a lot of opinions on this topic. But what I'm trusting is that there's collaboration to make the tests really balanced. And right now, like I said, hasn't been a huge focus, but definitely as the season gets a little bit more critical towards games preparation, we'll look at past events and just maybe pick up some trends or potential movements that we haven't tested. But at the end of the day, we want to be balanced. The tests are going to be what they're going to be, and we can't predict that. So trying to stay as balanced as possible is going to be the goal.
So my last question on programming is, the games seem to be going back to CrossFit-ish type workouts.
Yeah.
Back to like 2014, 2015 era style. Is that better for you guys, or do you like the newer, let's throw in some new stuff here and there?
I mean,
What do you think?
I don't think I care that much. You know, I roll with it. You know, let's go classic, let's go new. The only thing I will say is like, I'm not a huge fan of overly creative things just to make it weird, you know? I think just like keep it to what really needs to be tested, make it challenging, but nothing so weird that it's just almost unsafe. You know,
Yeah.
that's where I draw the line. Like, let's test the fitness, keep it safe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to come down to a test of fitness, not who can figure this out, which
Yeah.
you know, we've experienced that.
So there is some form of athleticism about figuring it out.
Sure.
Do you think you're strong in athleticism?
Yeah.
I think under
I think so.
pressure, I will say 3 years ago, probably not as much. 3 years ago, let's say he had in his head that he was going to do a set of 10 of something. And he got up there and did 2 and came down. That was more like, oh, that didn't go to plan. Less ability to pivot and kind of adapt. Obviously, as we got serious, adapting is a critical part of the game. So I would say he's been getting a lot of practice doing that over the years.
Yeah.
The recent
So,
years.
so people I would say are strong in athleticism are like Scott Panchek, like Dan Bailey, like
Yeah.
Paige Semenza, Carolyn Prevost. These are people that played other sports their whole lives.
Yeah.
They're going to slide under a pole. They're going to...
Yeah, right.
Do you have that in you?
I
so.
I think I do. Yeah.
Cutting?
I mean, my hips may get a little sore at this age, but
Yeah.
As long as you have
Yeah.
an hour warm-up.
as long as I warm up for an hour.
I would say if volleyball shows up at the games,
Ooh.
we might be in trouble.
Oh man.
We may have to add some volleyball drills just in case. What else? Softball, maybe?
Softball. Yeah.
Football throws. Please don't put those in the games.
Yeah.
That would not. We may have to like FaceTime Scott for like a urgent tutorial.
Yeah, I don't think any throws are coming back ever again after the
The
debacle
softball.
of the
Yeah.
softball throw.
Yeah.
You were a wrestler growing up, right?
I was.
Brandon and I talked about that a lot last night. The correlation of pain threshold and being a wrestler, and there are a lot of really good athletes out there in the CrossFit space
Yeah.
that came with that wrestling background.
Absolutely.
How much do you attribute to that?
A lot. I mean, so when I was growing up, I had 3 older sisters, so I didn't like have a rough household. But when I joined wrestling, I learned I had this other gear, or this just grittiness of being able to continue with a lot of discomfort. Right? If you're put in a position and you're very uncomfortable, you had to fight through it and just live with it. And what I learned from that in wrestling definitely plays out in the CrossFit world. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I say it all the time. One of my first ever interviews was Chris Spieler, who was a college wrestler, and he said, wrestling is all about being in positions that are not comfortable.
Right?
And that's
It's
what CrossFit is.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the quotes that we bring up often is, I think it was Josh Bridges, basically said, things are going to get difficult, things are going to be hot, things are going to be hard. It's basically like when things catch on fire, you have to be willing to run into that fire, not avoid it. And so that's kind of what I think internally when things get really hard. It's like, all right, I either lean in or this isn't going to pan out. And that's...
Well,
how it goes.
I've witnessed your career over the last 2 years. You lean in, and it is fun to watch.
Thank you.
I love when you finish a workout and you look and you're like, I don't even remember the last 30 seconds.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I would have gotten to watch him wrestle. That was way before my time. So
Yeah.
I have seen pictures, but no live wrestling
That's
videos
okay.
or anything.
Maybe we can get Spieler out of retirement, and him and Spieler can go
Yeah,
out for a
there
little.
You
you
know,
go.
it's funny. At Southland, Brandon would like kind of wrestle Rudy, and I'm like, please don't hurt him. Like, he needs to warm up first, and then you came up and kind of tried to grab him.
Yeah.
And then he like, it was a little scary.
Yeah.
So last thing on wrestling, I don't know if you saw it. They did that live quarterfinals with Colton, Jason, and all those guys.
Yes.
And Colton and Jason tried to wrestle Colton.
Yes.
Yes.
And Colton dropped him quick. And seeing that little guy take down that big, tall football player
Oh yeah.
was really impressive.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Those wrestlers, they're
Yeah.
gritty.
We don't mess around.
Yeah. And that dude shows as much grit as anybody out there. And
sure.
it's all about that wrestling background.
Yeah.
Well, guys, as always, it's always a treat hanging out with you. I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad you live so close and that we can do this all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
It's great.
But I can't wait to see you at the games.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scott.
And hopefully we'll have some backstage access to
Yeah.
get some of your thoughts post-workout and
Yeah.
in the warm-up area and stuff.
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Great. All right.
Well, thanks, guys.
Yep.
Bye.